tonight, we're looking at race management, right? Entries, lineups, results, points, payouts, connecting to orbits, connecting to race manager, all of those types of things. So, yeah, that's what we'll cover here tonight. Again, if you've got questions, please send them in and please ask. So we're going to get started here, race management. Race management's where we're going to start, and the first tab you see is the setup tab. We created an event yesterday when we looked at this for tonight, so we're using tonight's event. We've got 3 classes added. I'm only going to work with one just to keep things simple and streamlined, but obviously you have 3 classes added, and if you're running multiple classes, you'll do some of these things more than one time. To start, we'll look at the setup tab and we'll look at the pill draw options. This is pretty straightforward stuff here. There's 2 options for manual entry, either during the check-in process or after they're in the entry list already. There's 3 options for an auto draw. During the check-in process before you find a driver or after they're already in the entry list, depending on what you want to do. But there's also 2 options at the bottom that I want to focus on a little bit here on the pill draw section. There's a max pill and there's a rebase pill. Max pill, pretty straightforward, right? The largest number in the pill draw bucket for that night, right? 75, 150, I don't know, people do different things. But max pill is there. There's also a rebase pill option. Rebase pill is a little different. A rebase pill, whatever you type in here will be the new low pill number, be the new number 1 basically. So if you've got drivers and you're doing the auto draw and you want to keep doing the auto draw, but you got drivers questioning that for whatever reason, you can have the rebase pill set to whatever you need it to be, right? And then you can draw that pill out of a bucket, and whatever you draw here, say it's a 26, becomes the new 1. So if you've got a bunch of drivers mad that they're all drawing high numbers, you can say, hey, we're going to do this rebase option. Maybe 26 will be the new 1. Maybe 50 will be the new 1. So that's one way that's been used in the past that I appreciate. Next thing over here is transponder options. This is pretty straightforward as well, right? No transponders, allow rentals, no rentals. We're going to use allow rentals so you can see all the features. There's 2 other options over here on the right that I'll touch on quickly here. One is race options. Any race that's not qualifying or hot laps, you can set what your default drivers per row is. So if you're always starting single file no matter what, or if you're always starting 3 wide no matter what, you can just have the default here be single, double, or 3 wide. And then required registration is a field here as well. If you have a registration that you need your drivers to fill out to be able to compete, we talked about registrations yesterday in season management, you can select that as a required registration, and it basically works as a license check, right? So if you're going to require a registration, whether that's yearly or event-specific, when the driver signs in who is not registered, you'll get an error, basically, and you'll get the options to allow driver to compete with temporary license or allow driver to compete with no license. And there's reporting that you can use from that in the report section up here to show you drivers who A, paid at the back gate for that temporary license if they didn't register, or B, competed without paying. So that's one of the higher plan features, fairly new feature through My Race Pass, but you can require a registration to be used as a license check to compete. And then you can save all these things as defaults, right? So if your options aren't changing week to week, you should be able to set it the way you want it the first night or in preparation for the first night, save as defaults, and never worry about this screen again. Move ahead to entries here. Entries is now the process of putting a driver into the entry list at the back gate. 3 ways to find a driver. First, there's a competitors list on the left-hand side of the screen. Every driver who's raced with you before in this class or who has registered in this class will show on this competitors list on the left. And you can filter this by car number, right? So if I type in a 23, it brings up 23 options. I type in a 17, brings that up as well. All those types of things, right? So that competitors list, again, list of drivers who have raced with you before in this class or who have registered in this class. Now, what if you have a specific event registration, right? You can flip this from competitors list to pre-entries, and if you have a registration tied to this event, the drivers that registered in this class will show in this pre-entries drop-down, so it's easier to find and locate people that have registered if you have an event-specific registration. So that's the first way to find the driver, right? The tray on the left-hand side of the screen. Click on their name to add them to the list. Second way to find a driver is the scan barcode option. In the My Race Pass app, if a driver has claimed their profile, they'll get a barcode in the app that they can scan at the back gate. You just have to buy one of the scanners off of Amazon. It's super cheap. They scan the card at the back gate, or they scan that barcode in the app at the back gate, and it bypasses the search process, brings up their profile information, no chance of duplicates, no chance of finding the wrong guy, no chance of any of that. They claim their profile, they have that barcode in the app, you can scan the app. We also have a stack of, we call them hard cards or credit card size My Race Pass cards with a barcode on the back. You can actually assign hard cards with this barcode out to drivers. So if you want drivers to be able to have that card, they have them. If you frequent the IMCA Super Nationals in Boone, Iowa, you'll know at the sign-in table at the back gate, to sign in to IMCA Super Nationals, it's required you have a hard card. So if you're an IMCA track, your driver should be very used to this process. Other sanctioning bodies send these hard cards out as a part of the sanctioning packet. So if you buy the barcode scanner, you can use the barcode to find the driver. Third and final way to find the driver is the search at the top of the screen here. And it works as a string of text. So you type in the name, list of search results appears based off of the name you've typed in, click on the name out of the search. And I really want to emphasize here that every driver who has ever raced at any track that uses My Race Pass will already have a driver profile. So create new, unless you're like running kids, quarter midgets, or go-karts, or you run in classes that no one else in the world has ever thought of, really shouldn't be all that common. You really shouldn't have to create new very darn often. There's not a lot of first-time racers who've never raced in their lives showing up, anything other than the first night. First night you might have to create a few, but that's about it. One thing about creating these profiles is that if you can get your drivers to register in advance, whether that's a season yearly registration or an event-specific registration, that process of registering will also create them a driver profile. So if you got these new drivers that have never raced before and don't have a profile, if you can get them to register in advance, that's another step you don't have to worry about on race night. If you do have to create new, it's not a long process. First name, last name, city, and state, you're good. If you find and you've searched for a driver and you notice that they have two profiles, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to send me an email. Send me an email, please, so I can merge them together, right? support@myracepass.com. Somebody in that support box will be able to handle that. Potentially, I'm looking at one right now. 2 guys from Illinois with the same name. Potentially, that's a duplicate. I should look into that later. But regardless of how you search for a driver, whether it's on the tray on the left, the scan, or the out of the search, this is the screen that comes up. There are really only a few things that we need in order to put a driver into the entry list, and I'll explain those here. First thing being the pill draw number. Now, I have it set to auto draw, so it drew this driver a 4. Can't edit that field. That's the pill draw number for that driver. It's that 4. There's step 1 done. Step 2, the car number is what it sounds like. Number on the side of the car. The only thing you have to worry about here is if you have a driver, you cannot have duplicate car numbers on a per class basis. So if I go in here as 23, somebody else shows up and says they're number 23, you'll have to put an X or an initial or something like that behind their number. As much as I feel as an announcer that this should be illegal, you can put special characters in here. So if they show up and say, I'm 8-star, you can put an asterisk in there. You can put a $sign in there instead of an S, those types of things. But yeah, cannot have duplicates per class. Third thing in here is car owner. Car owner comes up most commonly in 2 circumstances. One, if someone other than the driver is getting paid, then that person or LLC or whatever needs to show up here as the car owner. If you click the search next to the car owner field, it brings up a list of all the car owners that driver has ever had. If you go to the all owners search over here, you can search through the entire database of owners. So if I'm driving for Jesse Sobbing that night, I can type in Team Crazy Racing and search results will come up. Tony Stewart Racing comes up. All those different car owners that have been car owners will come up. But whether you're searching through our entire database of owners or using a previously held owner's slot, owner information needs to match what goes on the check. The second instance in which owner information comes up is when you're doing owner points. It's rare. Some tracks still do it, though. A lot of series still do this more often than tracks. But if you're doing driver points and owner points, then every competitor needs to have a car owner listed. Even if it's sole proprietor, right? If I'm Austin Lloyd and I own my own car and there is no car owner, I still will go in here as Austin Lloyd Racing. Therefore, I can be a part of the owner's points as well. So if you're doing owner points, every driver needs a car owner. If you're just doing owner for payouts when someone other than the driver is getting paid, then this needs to go in here as the person getting paid. There is a separate field here for alternate payee. It's a very singular circumstance in which you see this. If someone other than the driver is getting paid, that person goes there as an owner. But if it's a different person that's going in for owner points, then you put the owner points option up in the owner field, and you put the alternate payee, that third party that's getting paid, in this alternate payee field. I've seen this come up in a really specific circumstance. It's driver wants to have driver name listed in owner points. So if I'm Austin Lloyd and in owner points, I want to have Austin Lloyd Racing listed as the owner. But the payout has to go to like my LLC or something like that, or in a spouse's name or whatever. Then you'd put that other person in there as the alternate payee. Very rare circumstance. I think I've seen 2 different series use it, and that's basically it. So we are at PIL, car number, owner information. So the fourth and final thing that we need to put somebody to an entry list is the transponder number. If you click in the box, it brings up a list of the recent transponder numbers they've used. You can mark it as default if it's their own. You can mark owner as default. You can set car number as default. But if they're renting a transponder from you, type in the number of the transponder that they're renting, mark the transponder rented box. At the end of the night, you can run a transponder report that'll show you everyone who rented a transponder from you so you know who to chase down. Next thing in here is lineup override, which, by the way, that covers the 4 things that we need to put somebody in the entry list, right? PIL, car number, owner, transponder. Other things that are in here. Lineup override, if you have somebody who needs to start in the back for the heats or for all races, lineup override will push them to the back and ignore whatever lineup procedure you pick. Payment amount, payment method, and contingency information is only partner plan features. It's very specialized features, and really it does not apply to most anybody. So we kind of use it as a case-by-case basis in terms of turning it on. I will share contingency information. It's not like nightly contingency prizes like Hard Charger or things of that nature, but instead it's a year-long contingency point standing. I use Lucas Oil late models as the example. They've got like their Sunoco Race Fuels poll awards, or their crew chief of the night, or their whatever. So those are the type of contingencies that this is. The only other thing in here to really pay attention to is the competitor information and confirmed memberships. Competitor information, make sure you have the correct information on file for them. And confirmed memberships just shows you the registrations that they filled out that are unique to your event that night. So you just one more check on their registration. But really that's it, and I'll add. That was a long-winded way of saying there's 4 things you need to pay attention to. So I'm going to add 10 cars to this event, and we'll have ourselves a fake 10-car race for tonight's racing. Now, you can edit all of this information, and as you can see, if you're using your defaults correctly, entering drivers is very simple, right? It becomes, hey, your PIL's 91, your car number is 87, your transponder is 104. All right, those are all the same. Here we go. It really doesn't take much to start entering drivers into an entry list. Like I said, I'll get to 10 of them. You can edit all of this information on the pencil on the right, which means that I can come over here to the right, I can click the edit button, and now I can edit the entry, all the same entry information that we just put in. I can edit a couple of other things, including assign a card, right? If you want to assign them a hard card, click here, scan the blank card, hand it to them, that's their card from now on. You can edit competitor contact, owner contact, and you can also do name change requests here as well. I really want to emphasize that a name change is a request that comes to us for approval, so it's not an instantaneous change. From there, I'm going to move ahead to the Races tab. Races is where you're going to start setting your format for the night in terms of what race types you're going to run. You can copy from previous, so like 121, I had 10 entries, I ran 2 heats in a feature, boom, there we go, there's my format, so I can copy from previous, or I can create from scratch, and I'll just do that really quickly here. I'll run 1 heat race and 1 feature, because demo mode and timing systems allows for 10 cars, so I'll do 10-car races here. But you can add any type of feature you want from A to Z if you're running at the Chili Bowl. You can run all the heat races you want to run. You can run dashes to line up the front few starting spots of your feature. If you're running qualifying or time trials, hot laps you can put in here if you want. Special race comes up in really specific circumstances like non-qualifier races. But really, I'm just going to have heat and feature to start here. Once you've got your race types added, you can do a couple of things here. One, you can change the name of your race, right? If you need to call it a main event instead of an A feature, if you need to call it a last chance showdown instead of a B feature, if you need to call it time trials instead of qualifying, you can do all those things. You can add a race sponsor here as well. Your Bob's Garage Heat Race number 1, your Lincoln Electric Time Trials, your H&H Mobile Home A feature, those types of things. You can edit the laps here as well, how many cars go to tech, that kind of stuff. But the one thing in here that's most important is your race configuration. It's where you're going to set your transfers on a per race basis. So there's 2 ways that I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about this regular transfers, and I'm going to talk about this passing points. Regular transfers is, what most people are used to. How many cars from each heat individually, if I had like 4 heats, how many cars from each heat are going to the A feature? All of them? None of them? 1 per heat down to however many you want, right? I take my top 5 per heat to the A, everybody else to a B, something like that. Now, if you're doing passing points, you can use the from group option. Dakota, I've got a question in here regarding hot laps. Can you explain why someone would want to be able to look at transponder numbers and have the transponder number changes in their timing system come back to my race pass? I think that would be most helpful here. But if I'm doing passing points, I change it to from group, because now instead of taking 5 per heat, I'm taking 20 or 18 or whatever from all the heat races together to move them all to the A main. So if I'm passing points, I'm from group and I'm choosing total number. If I'm regular transfers, I'm doing per race and I'm taking X number per heat to the feature. That kind of a deal. So I'll save that and we'll move forward from there. We got lineups here next. Lineups will show. This is obviously what you would expect it to be, right? Lineups. There are probably 100 different lineup schemes that we've got for heat races already. So if you go to the calculate lineup options in the upper left-hand side of the screen, you'll be able to see all of the lineup options that we've got for whatever race type you're on. For heat races, like I said, there's probably 100 of them. If you're doing pill draw, there's a couple of different pill draw options, whether that be regular or staggered. There's IMCA-specific lineup options. There's WSOTA-specific lineup options. There's lineup options for, a number of different topics in here. Fast, slow heats. There's karting stuff. There's point average stuff. There's, I don't know. It's almost to the point now, and I'm going to jinx it here because somebody's going to show me something I've never seen before, but it's almost to the point now where it's hard to find something that we haven't done at some point. If you don't have a lineup option that works exactly correctly for you, reach out to us and we can help test through these lineup options to figure out what you want and favorite the ones you're going to use. When you favorite the ones you're going to use, you go to My Lineups, they show here. So for right now, I'm just going to do heat from pill draw. It's simple. We'll calculate. We'll go ahead from there. Now that I've got lineups, I'm going to show you one other thing. There's a tools option up here where you can see a lineup monitor screen. This screen auto refreshes every few seconds, and it will show you only upcoming lineups, which means that as soon as you calculate lineups, it'll show on this screen as soon as it refreshes, which is, again, every couple seconds. As soon as you save a race as completed in the results tab, that race will fall off of this screen. So this is only showing you upcoming lineups all night long. So if you're paying somebody to staple them somewhere, or if you're paying somebody to write them on a whiteboard, pay them to do something else because this can take care of it for you. But then the question becomes, okay, I've got my entries, I've got my races, I've got my lineups. How do I get this information into my timing system? To start, we're going to start with orbits as the first one. We're going to do the heat race in orbits. When it's come time to do the feature, I'll disconnect and close orbits. I'll open up Race Manager. I'll show you the process in Race Manager. But how do I get to, well, either way, it's the same. It's MRP Live. MRP Live, there's a download for it here in the MRP Live tab. Download and install this on the same machine that your timing system is running on, and it's a small application that lives between the two. Connecting the two is very simple. I'll start here in Orbits. In the Distribution tab of Orbits, there is an IP address and a port number under the scoreboard feed. Make sure your scoreboard feed is green and turned on. Take the IP address, put it in the IP field, take the port number, put it in the port field. It's pretty much always 50,000. Select the correct timing system. That'll pretty much never change. I mean, unless you're using, a different computer every week or have ISPs changing your IP address, that'll pretty much never change. The only thing you'll worry about changing on a night-to-night basis is this connection code. So we'll copy the connection code and put it in the connection code box. Every event in My Race Pass will generate its own specific and unique connection code. So all you'll need to do here, paste in the connection code or just click the Launch from Web button and press Connect here. Now we're connected. Now live timing works in the app. Now how do I get my lineups into Orbits? Well, I press this Get Lineups button right here. When I press Get Lineups, now I can come to Orbits and I can import them. So instead of creating groups and runs, I can import them. Import my groups first. Typically, you import your groups early in the night, and it's only once because you only have to do that one time unless you've got a bunch of late arrivers. Then I'll import my runs. It'll import the lineups for every single class that you've got lineups created for in My Race Pass. So once you calculate all heat race lineups, then import your lineups. It'll import all your classes at once for you. So import groups, then import runs. I'm going to go ahead and time this using the track simulator that Orbits provides, which means that I actually have to click on Heat 1. There we go. And here we go. We are simulating a race in Orbits. So we'll let that run, let them get a few laps in. While that is running, there is one other thing I'd like to show you. This is great to put in front of an announcer. There is underneath the MRP Live drop-down at the top of the screen a lap viewer. It's just timing data in a browser window. So your announcer can see all of this timing data, right? Running order, if your race name has practice, hot laps, time trials, qualifying in it, it'll automatically switch to the best lap view. You can see a positions gained view for a plus and minus. You can see an average lap time view, including the average over the last 3 laps. As soon as we get 3 laps into our fake race, then that'll start to appear. And I love this as an announcer because that means that I can come back during a late yellow and I can say, hey, over the last 3 laps, second is faster than first by a 1/10. Let's keep an eye on this. You can also see lap leaders, who's led every lap. So wanted to show that quickly here before we button all of this up. But I'll come back to Orbits. And I'll say in the track simulator is going to be done. We'll checkered flag and stop the race. Everything purple flag to stop sign won't change for you in Orbits. My Race Pass doesn't affect that at all. But that checkered flag and stop sign is the sequence that triggers the results to come back to My Race Pass. So now when I come back to My Race Pass, if I want to, I can manually put the results in. I can click on the names on the left in the order that they drive or finished. If you don't have transponders at your track, you can manually do that. You can also click in this field and type the numbers in. But you'll also see here at the top of the screen, I have an upload that's pending. 410 sprints, winged, heat 1. That's the race we just ran. I'll click on the link. Now the results are imported automatically. I can save as complete. If I need to manually adjust these, like if this driver's transponder fell off but he finished 6, I can drag him up to 6 and resave. I can still manually manipulate. I can also mark my DNF, DNS, DQ, or black flag. And I can do that after the fact as well, right? So if second came across the scales light, I can click D2 or DQ, save as completed, it'll push him to the bottom. NPP is the last checkbox in here that stands for no passing points. So if you've got a driver who elected to start at the back, you can use this to award him finishing points but not passing points because he chose to be back there, that kind of a deal. So I've got that part of it done. Now let me see if I can smoothly, is the big question here, disconnect MRP Live, close Orbits, open Race Manager and do all of this without messing anything up? We'll find out. We'll find out how good I am at this. So open up Race Manager, and we'll try this again. All right, so come back to lineups. My heat race is done. I've got A feature lineups ready to go. I'll calculate lineups for my A feature. There's a lot of ways to do this too, right? A feature from heats and Bs is just straight up. There's WSOTA specific stuff. There's IMCA specific stuff. There's passing point stuff. There's karting stuff. There's, more than you could count. There's a lot of lineup options. If you're confused on what to pick, please reach out to us. We want to help steer you in the correct direction to make lineups easy. I'm going to choose just straight up A feature from heats and Bs. Calculate. Now, what if I'm doing an invert? What if I'm doing a redraw? Well, underneath of lineup options, there's invert and redraw. So if I'm going to invert the top 6, I can invert the top 6. If I'm going to do a redraw, let's say I'm going to redraw the top 6, I can redraw 6. I can either auto redraw one at a time, auto redraw all at once, or I can manually type the pill. Like if they're drawing frisbees on the front stretch, I can manually type the pill as well. But let me auto redraw and save, and there's my redraw done. So that's all well and good, and we're finished up here. I should go back to the lineup monitor. You can see there is no more heat race 1 because that's been checkered flagged. There is now an A feature 1. So again, wherever you have this posted, lineups will always update. Now, setting up Race Manager with MRP Live. So in Race Manager, the Setup tab is where you're going to look for port number and IP address. Port number is still always 50,000. Want to make sure that that's enabled. IP address is listed here as well. So it's the same thing, right? Type in the IP address, type in the port number 50,000. Select Race Manager instead of Orbits. Connection code should be the same because it's the same event, right? So we'll double check that. Connection code's the same. Now I can connect. Now in Race Manager, I will... it's not going to let me do it. I messed something up disconnecting from MRP Live. I know I did. Shoot a pickle. What have I done? Let me try to reopen MRP Live and see what we find here. Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, this really doesn't like to switch from Orbits to Race Manager at the same time, which will never be an issue for any of you because you're not using two different timing systems on race night. There we go. Got her to go. Cool. It said to restart Race Manager. Perfect. So now when I come to MRP Live, it'll be the same process as it was with Orbits. I've got my lineups created. Now when I create my lineups, I can go get lineups in MRP Live. It's the same dang thing. Instead of clicking an import, they'll just show up in the Assign tab. You'll have all classes competitors list. You'll have a competitors list for each class, and you'll have every race that you've got created. So I'll go ahead and time demo race here in Race Manager, and we will continue on from there. Get them a couple laps in so it's a good race. And there we go. Checkered flag and stop. Perfect. So now, when I come to the Results tab, works the same way, right? I got 410 wing sprints race for my import. None of this changes. It's all the same. So you can kind of see the difference in connecting to Orbits and connecting to Race Manager. It's a little bit simpler, I think, to connect to Race Manager, but all the same features exist in Orbits as well. And that's basically a race night, right? We've done our entries, we've done our lineups, we've done our results, we created our races, we connected to MRP Live, all of that stuff is available. The last step to this is points and payouts. Points and payouts starts in settings. There's a points and pay schemes area where you can add championship point structures, either from ones that exist within the program, those are called global ones, or ones that you create from scratch. You can go in here, you can add position points for every position, you can add passing points, you can modify results based on DNF, DNS, DQ, or black flag, but you basically create a scheme, and then at the end of the night when you're adding a points and pay group, I can add a point scheme that I've created. We'll say tonight's a USRA race. I'll add a pay scheme that I've created. We'll choose this modified scheme that we've created. And you can add. So I'll add my points and pay. In here, you can choose if the points apply to competitor points or owner points or team points. So if you're doing owner points, this is where you do that. You can, if you've got multiple schedules, you can select what schedule these points are a part of. and then you can view your points and payouts. Now, you can still adjust these, right? If this driver is going to get docked 20 points for rough driving, or this driver is going to get a $50 bonus for being the hard charger, you can still make adjustments to these, but as long as your scheme is correct, those adjustments should be fairly small and few and far between, and your points should be updated pretty easily. Now, your points will update. If you've got a website through us or on the MyRacePass app, it'll take roughly 30 minutes for those points to update in certain circumstances. But the last step to this is the Create Payments button. And that's the screen that I said we were going to come back to yesterday, this Payments tab. I want to show you this screen. You can do a couple of things here. One, you can create checks from this screen. Right, so if I go in here, I choose the layout that works for me, I enter the starting check number, and I check the box, I can print checks now, right? And, you know, go ahead and print them out, and there we go. Sometimes you have to mess with margins a little bit to get it to be perfect, but we haven't run across anybody yet that we weren't able to get perfect for them. There's also an option here to print mailing labels. If you're not doing your payout on race night, if you're mailing them later on in the week, you can print mailing labels directly from this screen. Another reason to have your drivers register in advance so you can get their address on file so you can pay them if you're paying them this way. You can also print a report for at the back gate for drivers signing for their payouts, right? So it has the amount that they were paid. If you're printing checks, the check number, the payee. If the payee is a car owner, the driver's name is in parentheses, white space for him to sign. Easy, trackable thing for you to figure out who's claimed their checks and who hasn't. You can also export all of this information into QuickBooks, right? If you got QuickBooks, you can put in the bank and expense account from QuickBooks, download the .iif file that you can upload then into QuickBooks, and you can do it all that way. And then at this point, I like to joke that you can turn your lights off and go home, right? Because what else would you have to do running a racetrack? But in terms of race management, that's really what this comes down to, right? We've run through an entire demo race here. That is entries, lineups, orbits, west hold, results, points and pay, all of that kind of stuff. In that, I know that's a lot to get through. I know that due to my own incompetence, we started 10 minutes late, so I kind of rushed through a little bit of this, and I apologize for that. If you have questions on any of this, guys, the most important thing to Dakota and myself here at MyRacePass as the people who are in support is to make race night as simple and as efficient as we possibly can. So if something's going on or you have a question or you don't trust a certain part of the program, please reach out to us. We want to try to help make that simpler and more efficient in your tower on race night. Beyond that, that's really all I have to show today. We're going to take tomorrow off. We're going to come back on Thursday. We're going to talk about online tickets. Friday, we're going to talk about websites. So make sure you stick around for those two things. We have a ton of ticketing features. We've to the point now where there's not much we can't accomplish anymore. We're excited to show you all that. And then, of course, our websites are integrated fully with everything else that we do. So appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for being patient with me. Thanks for sitting through this with us. And, guys, we'll see you on Thursday night.